Thank you so much for coming back to Rhino and practicing your moth speech in front of us and crowdsourcing us for our opinions on your conclusion, which I'll get to in a bit. One of the things that really struck me about Ed's speech, especially when he gave it this time, was his vocal variety and his rhythm. Now, when Ed typically comes up and speaks, it's always a fun occasion because he is frolicking, as he puts it, around the stage. He's got all of this crazy body language energy. And I think it's interesting that when you limited yourself from doing that, Ed, you really allowed your voice to do a lot of the work for you. And it's almost made me reconsider and think that I should implement some sort of limitations on my own speeches in the future so that I can focus really on developing other skills, kind of like when you blindfold yourself so you can try to develop your ear a little bit better or something like that. Because the rhythm was excellent. As soon as you started giving your speech and you're talking about shackled to a steel rail and all these draconian laws, it sounded almost like beat poetry or like a radio personality or something. I thought it was really good and totally appropriate for the moth setting, which is kind of in a similar vein. The other things that you did really well, Ed, were the flowery descriptions of language. They were really evocative. As I mentioned before, the being shackled to a steel rail, talking about the draconian laws of draconian. There was a nice bit of dry humor and irony in there. But just throughout the whole speech, there was really colorful language that painted a picture, and I think we can all learn from that and learn how to tell a story from listening to some of Ed's speeches. Now, you wanted advice on the conclusion, and I think I've kind of identified the problem, which is the theme, I believe, of Moth, right, this month is boldness. Is that correct? So you wanted to do something with boldness, and so your last line of the speech is, "My bold choices set me free," which is great. It's on brand, and it applies. However, the first 4 minutes of the speech were really more about the kindness of strangers to you and how that kindness was really what set you free. There was a heavy emphasis on characters like Officer Pagano and Deuce Deuce and all these people who, even though they were typically, like, they should have been your enemies, really, they became your allies and they helped you through this whole thing. And there's really only like 30 seconds at the end where you're talking about leaving a six-figure job and making bold choices. So I would really try to emphasize the boldness of those choices. Like, how hard was it to leave that six-figure job? How hard was it to stop seeing these people as enemies and start seeing them as allies? And what decisions did you make that were really bold, and why were those decisions bold? Why was it tough to make them? And put a little bit more emphasis there so that when you get to that final line, "My bold decision set me free," it feels earned. And it doesn't feel like it's kind of just tacked on to make the speech apply to the Moth theme. So if you do that, I think it'll be a very excellent speech, and I'm excited to hear you give it at Moth. Thanks.